All right, no promo video for this week.
Oh man.
I mean, I'm just getting lazy. I just want y'all to know, right? Actually, we got a lot of video projects going on, so I wasn't able to make one. But you can just deal with it, right? Anybody catching where I'm going with this? All right. Yeah, we're starting a new series tonight. It's going to be a 3-part series where we're talking about, really talking about this phrase of, just deal with it. How many of you have ever been in a situation where something happens and you hear this, someone says to you, like, just deal with it. Just take care of it. Just, make sure to get rid of that, right? If you've ever experienced that, let me see. I want to see if I'm alone. All right, good. Most of us have had some point in time in our life where somebody has thrown this to us. Now, if it's a simple situation, it's not bad advice, right? If you go through and you look at, like, maybe it's something along the lines of, your pet made a mess in the living room. You just look at this, your mom's like, just deal with it. You can probably handle that. Be like, oh, put on the gloves, get some paper towels, the Clorox, you're going to take care of it. If it's something along the lines like, you're like, I want a PB&J sandwich, and you realize you don't have that, just deal with it. Okay, you're going to have turkey or fast for that meal. It's something that we can handle. But there's a lot of times in our lives where we have more difficult situations come up. Maybe it's something like your best friend betrayed you. It's something you just deal with it? I don't think so. It's something like maybe a bad mistake from your past. Something you have trouble forgiving yourself with, and it's just not enough to say just deal with it. Or maybe something bad happens to you. Maybe it's something you have no control over. Maybe it's a sickness. Maybe it's something along those lines. And just dealing with it is really not enough. And honestly, from my experience working in youth ministry, I've learned more and more that as adolescents, you have trouble dealing with things. We don't know how. And we don't know where to begin. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering 3 different aspects during this talk. Maddie, if you would mute every mic except for Shannon's mic. Just mute everything on the board except for Shannon's mic. It's buzzing up here. I don't know if you can hear it, but all right. So there's 3 parts that we're going to be looking at. The last week, we're going to be talking about what do we do? How do we deal whenever we make mistakes? We have bad past mistakes. How do we deal with whenever we screw up and we're not sure what to do? Next week, we're going to be talking about how do you deal when bad things happen to you. Not of any cause of your own, but just something that happens. And then the one we're going to talk about today is how do we deal with disappointment? Now, real quick question, I'm pretty sure I know the answers. How many of you have ever been disappointed? Right? Real quick, how many of you are Georgia fans? You know what disappointment is from this weekend, right? It was... That's all right. It's okay. I was pulling for them. I was, just to be honest. But we all have dealt with some disappointment, right? Whenever I was 2 stories of disappointment, I want to tell you. First one's quick. Whenever I was your age, I went to a camp, Christian camp. It was kind of like Snowbird, but nowhere near as awesome. And I went to it, and I was having breakfast one day, and I went in, and they had, like the cartons of milk, what I'm talking about, like you get at school. And they had that, and I had, like, this waffle breakfast, and I was pretty pumped about this. And I'm looking down at it, and I was like, all right, it's in Florida, so it's like 100 degrees already. But I was like, I'm ready for this breakfast. And so I take it, and I'm talking with my friends. I do the no-look open on the milk. Just like, and then it doesn't pour it in my mouth, it falls into my mouth. It's not like and I was just like, and it's one of those moments, those moments where you just gasp because you're surprised? It was like, and I swallowed it because I was like, ugh! And then I'm sitting here and I have no money, and you don't have you can't go through the line again. You can't whatever, and I was like, and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like shaking my milk or my curdled butter or whatever I have, and I was like, ugh! And poured it out, and I was like, I need $1. There's a drink machine. I was like, I need a Coke. I need something to burn this out of my mouth. And so, I'm begging people at this camp. I don't even know. I'm like, does anyone have $1? Anyone have $1? And someone's like, here, shut up. And so I took the $1 and I went and got my Coke, and I was like, oh. I was so disappointed with my breakfast, right? That was a minor one, but I was just like, man, I knew that was going to be a great start of my day, and it was not. Another one whenever I was playing football. I want you to know, I can relate with our high school football team here. I can relate because I have been a part of a 56-0 loss. I've been a part of those things, but one year, my senior year, we were having a pretty good year. And a pretty good year meaning that we were only, we were 2-3, meaning we won 2, we lost 3. That was a good year for Fannin County, okay? And we had barely lost those games. We lost all of our games by total combined points of 8 points. So 2 games by 1 game by 6. And we knew we were better than our record, right? And so we go in against a team that's a number 5 in the state, North Hall. And they were coming to our home. They were coming in our house. We were ready. We knew we were going to be able to beat them. And lo and behold, there's a minute left, and we're driving. Now, I was a lineman, just in case anyone was confused about my position. So I was an offensive lineman. You don't have to laugh too loud. And we're driving down the field, and we get to the 10-yard line, and we got the minute left on the clock, and when Coach calls a timeout because our starting tight end got hurt on the play that got us there. And so he calls us over and we come up with the perfect play. Well, Coach says the perfect play, we're like, yeah. And so we're sitting there, and we're not sitting at all. We're standing. But anyway, we're in a circle, and we get the perfect play, and he's like, get out there and win this game. And we're all like, yeah! We're pumped. So we run out there. We had the perfect play drawn up. We snapped it. Boom, here we go. Run the play. We score a touchdown. We are ecstatic. Because there's no way they're going to be able to score. It was 10-14, and then we scored, so we were like, we are winning this game. And then we look around, and guess what we see? Flag. There's a flag! And we're like, what's the flag? We look around, and it was an illegal formation, not enough men on the line of scrimmage. Now, for those of you who don't know football, what that means is, this is what it means. Our backup tight end, Daly, didn't come on the field. He was in the meeting. He was in the conference that we had, on the sidelines. We all ran out, and he went back to the bench. And it was one of those things where we're like, what are you doing? We were going to win this game. In the next play, he gets in there, we fumble the ball, they take it, and they run the clock out, and we lose the game. Yes! I don't know if you can feel it, but I am still disappointed about this. Now, we weren't going to do anything. We weren't going to make it to the playoffs, but we could have beat number 5. And it was one of those things that you've probably been in a situation where you're like, man, we could have won this. I could have done that. Why was I disappointed? Because of my expectation. Every other year, whenever we lost, I really didn't care. You know why? Because I knew we were going to lose. That's kind of how it went in. It's Fannin County football. We get out there, we lose. Our band was really great too, by the way, and we didn't like them, but I like y'all. But I feel all the pain going around. But our expectations drive why we're disappointed. If you think back, I want you to take a quick moment. Just think about, when was the last time you were really disappointed? Yeah, we don't have to go into that. It's all right. We'll just leave it back there, okay? So for some of us, it's very real right now. Very real right now, right? So, all right, we're gonna gather back up here. It's okay, we're praying for you. Okay, so we can think about our disappointment, right? A lot of you are thinking about, some of you are actually saying it, and we think about, and the reason we're so disappointed. I'm just going to take a breath. The reason we're disappointed, guys, listen up, focus up, is because of where we set our expectation, right? In our lives, the things that disappoint us, you expected to get that job, and you didn't, so you're disappointed. You expected to get into this school or into this department or something like that, and you didn't. You were expecting to come home to like fettuccine alfredo, and then your husband messes it up, so you end up ordering a pizza. That's not personal or anything. It's our expectation. But what's even more than our expectation, because a lot of us will go, okay, well, if I don't ever want to be disappointed, I'll just set really low expectations. No. That's not what we need to do. No matter how low you set them, you're going to have some sort of disappointment. But what's even more important than where we set our expectation is where we turn when we get disappointed. It's way more than our expectations are important, but whenever you get disappointed, which is inevitable, it's going to happen. Whenever that happens, where do you turn? Because that is what really sets the course of what you do with your disappointment. We're going to be looking at two disciples tonight, and these two disciples actually have a ton in common, even though there's some main things. We're going to be looking at Peter, which is like, hey, everyone always looks at Peter. Hey, Peter. All right, so we have Peter, and we're going to be looking at Judas.
What?
These, yeah. What? They're not alike. All right, they're actually a lot alike. Okay, so we have Peter. I want to walk through you. Just in case you don't know who Peter is, Peter is, as far as the disciples go, he's the loudmouth. He's the one who's always willing to speak his mind. In fact, he's constantly saying something, just like he's saying what everyone else, won't say. You know people like that? You're sitting there and then someone smells bad or something, and everyone's like, I just want to say anything. Peter would be the guy to be like, dude, get some deodorant. That's who Peter is. Okay? Now, Peter's accolades, listen to what Peter did. Peter was, he was the one who walked on water, so that's pretty rad. Peter was the first to say that, hey, this is the Messiah, so that's pretty cool. Peter all around was very bold. All right? And let's look at Judas. So we have Judas. We don't know a whole lot about Judas, but we do know that Judas was a treasurer of the group. So he's the guy over there with the calculator, or the abacus, or, I don't know, just good numbers in his head. He's over there counting the money. And we don't really have much that he says until the end of Jesus' life. There's not much that we have recorded from him. But here's what they had in common. Both of them had the expectation that Jesus was going to bring about his kingdom here and now. Like in their lifetime, they thought Jesus, they thought he was going to be a king like soon, and not like 2,000 years soon, like before Jesus got arrested and before things got bad, that Jesus was going to rise up, and he was going to be in charge. Okay? They both had the same thought, okay? Now they both dealt with it in different ways. Okay, Peter exhibits this lack of understanding about what Jesus was going to do whenever they're in the garden and the guards come and he gets betrayed. And Peter is like, and he pulls out a sword and he goes to swing and tries to cut off a guy's head. He evidently is not very good at this because he only cuts off the ear. Okay, just for those of you who think, he was aiming for the ear because no one's aiming for the ear. He was going for center forehead and he just bad aim or something. And he missed, cuts off the ear. He defends Jesus with the sword. Jesus says, no, don't do that. And he puts the guy's ear back on. He's like, all right, there you go. He's like, what? Speaking of this ear. Anyway, so you have him. He's the one to defend it. And Judas is one, he wants to get things rolling. He's going to go, okay, I'm going to force Jesus' hand. Okay, I'm going to go turn him in. I'm going to go and we're going to make this happen. We'll get the ball rolling. When they come, Jesus is going to be like, I'm going to be king. Get behind me, get out of my face. That's what he's expecting. Both of them have this expectation that Jesus is going to rule now, in their lifetime. Okay, so here's what's going to happen, and we both know they're going to be extremely disappointed. So let's start with Judas, and here's the deal: they both are super disappointed. Right? Judas turns in. Jesus does not go down like he thinks. Okay? And so we find him in this situation here. And starting in verse 3. Okay? When Judas, when Judas, who had betrayed him being Jesus, realized that Jesus had been condemned to die, he was filled with remorse. Okay? So he took up 30 pieces of silver back to the leading priests and elders. He said, I have sinned, for I have betrayed an innocent man. Judas comes to a point, okay? He comes to this moment, and he's like, man, what have I done? He's disappointed in himself. He's disappointed in the situation. He thought it was going to go down differently, okay? And he gets to this point that he's like, you know what? I'm going to fix it myself. He says, I'm going to take care of it. So he takes the money back. And he's like, okay, I'm going to fix it because I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, take your money back. Just take it back. And what do? They actually say, and I didn't put it in the verse, but they go on to say that, no, we can't accept money for murder. We can't take that back. And whenever they wouldn't take it back, Judas is all out of options. He's done everything he knows to do. So in his disappointment, seeing that he has no more power to fix anything, he takes his own life. He had nothing else. And so in his expectation, in his disappointment, he had nowhere else to turn, so that's what he does. Okay? Then we have Peter, okay? So we have Peter in the next set. So Peter, just so you know, before this, Jesus actually tells Peter, he says, dude, because that's how Jesus talks. He's like, dude, you are going to deny me 3 times. And Peter, being the loudmouth he is, like, no, Jesus, I ain't going to do that. You know me. You know me. I got your back. I'm not going to do that. And then Jesus said, well, you're going to do it before the rooster goes, if that's how your roosters go. He said, before that happens, you're going to deny me. And he says never. But this is the situation we're in. He's already denied Jesus twice at this point. Okay? First time's like to a little girl. A little girl comes up and he's like, aren't you one of them? And he's like, I don't know, Jesus. And then another person around the fire, he's sitting there and he's like, they're like, hey, you look like a Galilean. You must have been one of them Jesus folks. And he's like, I do not know him. And then this is the third time. We're right here. Someone comes up to him and says, basically, hey, you're one of the followers, are you? And Peter swore, he said, a curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man. And immediately the rooster crowed. And suddenly Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. And he went away weeping bitterly. At this point, he's already disappointed because of how things are going down. And now he's really disappointed in himself because he himself even said that he would not do it. It's kind of like me looking at you going, you're going to steal some money from me. You're like, no, I'm not. And then next thing you know, you're standing there holding my wallet and the money's in the hand. You're like, this is what it's like. He is sitting there going, man. He's sitting there going, I can't believe I did that. He's weeping bitterly. And then after this, in this moment of disappointment, where does he turn? He doesn't turn to go, okay, what do I need to do? I just need to go find those people and be like, hey, I was just kidding. I know Jesus. That's not what he's going to do. Okay? He gets to the point and he realizes, okay, there's nothing I can do to fix this. So he goes back to the disciples. He goes back to all the people who've been following Jesus. And he goes back to them, and ultimately he goes back to God and says, okay, God, I messed up. I need you. This and my disappointment, I got to go back to you. There's a video I want to show you of someone who was very kind to let us hear his testimony. And I want you to listen to it because, this is kind of, we're talking about old Bible stuff, but this is very real today, and I want you to just take a quick look.
Hi, I'm Mike Cornegay. I'm a member of the Richmond Hill United Methodist Church and also a youth volunteer, which I'm really excited about, as evidenced from the snowbird shirt. So I'm here to tell my story about how I kind of turned my life around at the end of high school after I joined the Army, and what Christ has meant to me along that journey. I joined the Army. 5 days after I graduated from high school, I left for boot camp in McClellan, Alabama. Had never been across the Mason-Dixon line, grew up in Pennsylvania. And left behind kind of not a troubled home life. My parents were excellent, but I didn't get along with them. And I didn't get along with them because I had a girlfriend that hated them. And because of that, I hated my parents. I was smoking pot. I was smoking cigarettes. I was drinking all the time. Anything I could do just short of getting arrested, I did it. And so my only option basically was to join the Army. I didn't really feel like I had a whole lot of future in going to college. And the whole time I was in boot camp, I was absolutely convinced that I was going to finish my my basic training and I was going to go to my school in the Army, and my girlfriend Sherry and I were going to get back together. We were going to get married and live happily ever after. That Christmas, December of '87, she was actually scheduled to come to Daytona Beach and visit her grandparents who lived there or owned a house there, I'm not sure which. And I was scheduled to meet her, and we were supposed to have a little Christmas celebration. I thought it was going to be a great reunion, and everything would be patched up and it would be fine, and again we'd live happily ever after. So 3 days before Christmas Eve 1987, she called me and said basically she thought I was a big piece of crap and never wanted to see me again. And it was really devastating because it was finally evident to me that she didn't feel the way I felt, obviously, and that she really had not been waiting for me like I thought. So I found myself kind of alone in the Army barracks in Savannah, where I was stationed. My roommate had left to go visit with his family, and there I was, Christmas Eve, all by myself. And that, you know, I didn't grow up really religious. I went to a Lutheran church growing up, so I felt kind of desperate, like I didn't really have anywhere to turn. But Christmas Eve morning, I thought, you know, I'm going to go down there to Florida anyway, and I'm going to patch things up with her. It's going to be great. We're going to have a big reunion. I had all these Christmas presents that I had shopped for her, and I'm going to take them and I'm going to meet up with her. So I load up my car, virtually out of gas, and I drive to Daytona. And I knew where she was staying and all that, so I went to her hotel, and as it turns out, she was in the shops across the street. We had a huge argument publicly right there on the street, very loud and embarrassing, and basically I left there just torn to pieces. And I left the gifts I had bought her on the stoop of her hotel room, and I thought, well, I'll just check into a hotel for the night, and I'll go back to Savannah in the morning, and everything will be fine. So I had $20 in my wallet. That's what I left, a car virtually out of gas and 20 bucks in my wallet. I checked into a $10 a night hotel room. You can imagine that room was pretty sweet. It was like a dungeon of depression in that place. So I checked in, put my stuff in the room, and I thought, well, I got $10 left. I can buy food or I can buy liquor. So I went and bought a bottle of liquor. And I had made up my mind before I left the hotel that I was going to get some pills. I was so broke I couldn't afford the pills. So I went to the grocery store pharmacy there, and I stole the pills that I was going to use to kill myself. Took the liquor and the bottles back to my hotel and basically took between 80 and 90 tablets and drank as much of the liquor as I could get in me before I passed out on the bed in the hotel. I don't know how much time passed, but I felt a hand and a voice pushing me saying, get up, get up, get up or you're going to die. Get up, you have a purpose in life, get up. And I just remember that of all the things that night. I don't remember much. But I remember that, and I remember this voice telling me, get up and move. So I got up, I grabbed my car keys, I was drunk. I drove down the road to her hotel room. And when I got there, what I didn't know is I was already in bad shape. So I get to her hotel room, and as it turns out, her cousin, who's an emergency room nurse, is outside the hotel room. She had come on the trip with her. And they were just hanging around outside the hotel room talking. And I don't even remember what her name is, but I remember saying her name and her other cousin's name, Jake, and then I passed out in front of the hotel. And when I woke up, I was in the ambulance on the way to the Halifax Medical Center in Daytona, to the emergency room. And they kept me in the hospital 4 or 5 days, and everything kind of returned to normal, and they discharged me. And so the Army has a policy that if anything like that happens, you try to kill yourself or there's any issues like that, as soon as you get back to your unit, you're required to go to the mental health unit at the hospital at Fort Stewart. So that's where I went next. The morning I woke up in the hospital, the morning after I checked in, I again felt this like hand pushing me. But it was a lot happier this time. It wasn't saying, get up, you're going to die. It was saying, pull yourself up. You have a purpose in life. And I just felt this hand pushing me, saying, check yourself out of this hospital. Go back to your unit. Be the best soldier you can be. Put your past behind you. And I believe that both those times and the nurse, my girlfriend's cousin nurse being there at the hotel, there's no doubt in my mind that was the hand of Christ in my life. So I say all those things. It was probably after I got married to Sarah, and we started sharing our life together, and I looked back and said, those things weren't coincidence. They weren't natural. Getting me up out of the bed when I would have been dead in a couple of hours, putting that nurse in front of the hotel, those things were not coincidence. I am absolutely convinced and completely 100% sure that that was the hand of Christ in my life. And I've never been the same since. And I do want to share, if I can, one Bible verse, because this is the Bible verse I've read time and time again. It's Psalms 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. And friends, if you're struggling with some kind of issue, I pray for you. I hope that you'll take the hand of Christ, because He is walking right beside you. No doubt in my mind. He's right there. All you got to do is take His hand. Thank you.
It was last week that me and Mike sat down to record, and for him to share his story. And I think sometimes we don't think about how powerful disappointment can be in our lives. I think there's times, if we look at it, there's plenty of times in our lives where we're disappointed. Maybe we're disappointed in our parents because of letting their marriage fall apart. We're disappointed in how we look, or how fit I am, or how smart I am. We get disappointed in the fact that I don't have a girlfriend, or I don't have a boyfriend, or we have these things that they come up in our lives that we try to fix them on our own. We try to do what we can do to make it right, and ultimately we can't. But we know who can. Putting our hope and running to God in our disappointment is the only way for you to really be able to deal with it. It's the only way for whenever something comes up that's just like, you know what, I'm so mad about that. I wish it would have went down differently. I wish they would have said this, or I wish I would have done that. And we can run it through in our head over and over again. But going back to God is where we find our hope and where we find our strength. Our last verse for you tonight is the one that's up on the board, and it's Isaiah 40:31. It says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." God is the source of a renewed hope. I want you to take a moment. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to think about the thing that you're most disappointed in. Whether that's how you're doing in school, whether that's your friendships right now, maybe your relationship choices, maybe family issues, I don't know, whatever you're most disappointed in. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Have you gone to God with it? Have you gone to God and said, you know what, God, you fulfill me. You are the one that lifts me up. You are the one that tells me whether I'm good or not. And guess what? God says you are good. God says He made you like you are. God says I have a purpose for you, just like Mike said. He says, I have a purpose for you. Judas and Peter were very similar, except in the way that they handled their disappointment? Who are you going to go to when you're disappointed? You're going to try to fix it yourself? Or are you going to say, God, I want to give it to you? God, I thank you for today. I thank you for this time that we have together. And God, I thank you for renewing our hope, for being our strength. God, I pray that whatever we're disappointed in, God, that we turn our eyes to you. That we know that you are the only source that can fill us back up. And God, I pray that we put our expectations on you. Because you don't let us down. You have never failed us. And God, I pray that when we hurt, and we're in times that are too much for us, that we turn to your strength and your wisdom. God, I pray that you give us the courage to really search our hearts. That we can look to you and know that you have got our back and that you will sustain us. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.